Filled with a mix of excitement and fear, Adaku walked out of her room to go welcome her husband when she met a man who appeared pale and lifeless. "What is going on here?" she asked with a shaky voice, and the rich woman told Adaku that she was married for the dead. Once upon a time, there was a girl who lived in the village of Amawo with her uncle and his wife. Her name was Adaku, and her parents died a few weeks after she was born, leaving her in the care of her uncle and his wife, who were petty traders in the village market. Adaku's uncle and his wife were so poor and struggled to make ends meet. Oftentimes, Adaku would hawk food items on her head around the village to enable her make some money for her uncle and his wife. One day, Adaku was hawking food items when she came across an old woman who said some weird things to her. The old woman told Adaku that in life, everything is not as it seems, and that Adaku should be careful not to make a mistake in the coming weeks, as every decision she takes should be thought through properly. Adaku was shocked to hear this from a total stranger, as she wondered what the old woman was talking about. She thanked the old woman for her advice as she continued to hawk her food items around the village. Night came, and Adaku retired home exhausted and hungry. As she approached their hut, she heard a loud cry and rushed in to check what was happening. Adaku met her uncle's wife, crying profusely, and asked what was going on. Her uncle's wife then revealed to her that her uncle collapsed that evening and was in a critical condition at the village herbalist's hut. The village herbalist had requested for some herbs which were rare and expensive, and his wife had no money to purchase the herbs. When Adaku heard this, she quickly brought out all the money she realized from her day's sales, but it was still not enough. Sad and confused, Adaku rushed out of their hut to the night market where they sold rare herbs. She tried to see if she could get the herbs on credit to pay back in a few days' time, but no one agreed to give her the herbs on credit. Adaku was so scared as she could not stand anything happening to her uncle, who was her only blood relative alive. As Adaku was about leaving the market, she saw a woman who sold herbs by the corner. She decided to try her luck once more to see if the woman would be so kind to give her the herbs on credit. Adaku approached the woman and pleaded, but the woman refused. As she was about leaving, the woman stopped her and told her that she could give her the herbs for free if only she would be willing to do something for her. Adaku's eyes shone in excitement as she was willing to do anything to save her uncle's life. She asked the woman what she had to do, and the woman told her that all she wanted Adaku to do was to marry her son, who was living in a faraway village. Adaku's countenance changed as she could not understand why the woman would make such an offer to her. The woman then told Adaku that she had been watching her for a very long time and noticed how good she was to her family and the people around her. The woman was so rich in the village and owned the largest herb farm in their village. No one had ever seen her son before, but news of her son, who people believed was living in a faraway village, circulated around the village sometime, and many even talked about how rich the woman's son was. Adaku, on hearing the woman's proposal, declined the offer as she returned home empty-handed. She told her uncle's wife all that transpired at the market with the rich woman, and her uncle's wife frowned and asked why she declined the offer. Adaku explained to her that she could not understand why a woman would want her to marry her son in exchange for mere herbs. Her uncle's wife, desperate to save her own husband, convinced Adaku that it was a small sacrifice that she had to make for the well-being of their family. She reminded Adaku of the fact that her husband was Adaku's only blood relative alive, and Adaku had no choice than to agree to marry the rich woman's son. The next morning, Adaku approached the rich woman to inform her of her decision to marry her son, and the woman told Adaku that the marriage ceremony would be conducted first before the herbs would be released to her. However, she revealed to Adaku that her son was still far away and would be unavailable till a few days, but that if Adaku required the herbs urgently, the marriage ceremony could be conducted immediately in her son's absence, so that she could give Adaku the herbs to go save her uncle. Filled with desperation, Adaku agreed to carry on with the marriage immediately, as she feared what further delay would do to her uncle, who was in a critical condition at the time. The preparations for the wedding commenced, and that evening Adaku was married to the rich woman's son, who she had never met before. The rich woman then gave her the herbs to go save her uncle, and Adaku, although worried about the decision she just made, was happy that her uncle would be alright. The thought of this wiped away every worry she had in her heart. The next day, Adaku moved into the rich woman's house, which was also her husband's house, as tradition puts an obligation on a newly married woman to move into her husband's house after marriage. For days, Adaku waited patiently to see her husband, as his mother told her that he would soon arrive their village. But as the days passed, Adaku's newly married husband did not arrive. One night, Adaku was about going to bed when the rich woman walked into her room to inform her that her husband had arrived. Filled with a mix of excitement and fear, Adaku walked out of her room to go welcome her husband when she met a man who appeared pale and lifeless. "What is going on here?" she asked with a shaky voice, and the rich woman told Adaku that she was married for the dead. Adaku opened her eyes in shock, as she could not believe what the rich woman was saying. Tears of regret gushed down her eyes as she remembered what the strange woman told her the other day when she was hawking on the street. Adaku confronted the rich woman, demanding an explanation, and the rich woman confessed that she wanted an heir to preserve her family name, even if it meant deceiving Adaku. Adaku told the woman that she was no longer interested in the marriage, but the woman told her that she had no option, as the marriage ceremony had already been conducted. Adaku was then forced to stay in the hut, all alone with her husband's dead body. The rich woman locked her up in the hut, as this was the final process to legitimize the marriage ceremony, because if Adaku failed to spend the night under the same roof with her husband, her marriage to him can be dissolved and rendered invalid. So, the rich woman made sure that she locked Adaku up in the hut, leaving her alone with her dead son, as she could not risk Adaku running away and ruining all her plans of preserving her family name. The rich woman knew that no woman in her right frame of mind would agree to marry her dead son, so she preyed on Adaku's situation to coerce her into marrying her dead son. Adaku, all alone in the hut with the rich woman's dead son, screamed in fear. Goosebumps filled her body as her imaginations began to run wild. Adaku continued to cry as she pleaded for someone to come save her. For hours, Adaku cried as she had never been so afraid in her life. She stood at a corner, unable to move, as she stared blankly at the young man's lifeless body. Unable to escape, Adaku wept aloud as she heard a loud bang on her door. Filled with fear, Adaku ran to hide as she watched what was going on. To her greatest surprise, she saw her uncle, who was now perfectly fine and well. Her uncle had a troubling dream where he heard Adaku crying for help and decided to leave his hut that night to go check on her. When he heard her crying aloud, he broke down the door and found Adaku all alone in the hut with a dead body. Her uncle hurriedly took Adaku away from the hut. As they returned to his own hut, Adaku was still shaking from all that happened, and by morning, when the rich woman returned, she found the door to her hut wide open and Adaku was nowhere to be found. She screamed in pain as she realized that her plan had failed. She rushed to Adaku's uncle's house and met her uncle, who was so furious at all that happened. The rich woman offered Adaku's uncle and his wife a huge amount of money for them to convince Adaku to follow through with the marriage, but her uncle turned down the money, saying that no amount of money was worth taking Adaku's happiness away. That was how Adaku was saved from marrying a dead corpse, as her uncle approached the elders of the village and the marriage was nullified immediately. News of all that happened spread around the village, and the villagers resented the rich woman for all that she had done. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should never take advantage of people at their weakest. Learn not to capitalize on one's misfortune for your benefit, as it will eventually lead to your own downfall. Envy and deceit can only bring temporary gains, but the consequences will catch up with you in the end. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.